Well, I'm afraid this is going to have to be my last session because I lost my job. You knew that a while back, and I've been doing freelance, but it's not enough to maintain, so.
I'm very sorry to hear that because I think we've been doing good work together.
Well, I have an idea if you.
Well, I'm always willing to listen.
Well, you know, didn't you said a while back you wanted to do an addition to your house.
Right.
You know, and I could probably help you out there, draw you up some plans, or even come out and look and maybe work on it that way.
You're right. You know, in fact, maybe you're reading my mind because I was thinking I'm going to have to go out and get an architect pretty soon.
Well, then we can just do that, huh?
But wait, we need to talk about this very fully before we just run into it. I mean, it's a possibility, but I think we need to kind of look at the pros and cons of it, and we need to kind of see, is it going to be in your best interest ultimately? You know, we do have a code of ethics, and the code of ethics kind of discourages bartering, but we do live and we're practicing here and is part of our culture, and that's not something that's always frowned upon. But I do think, you know, we need to talk about, could it get in the way of our professional relationship too? So we'd want to be sure to look at that.
Maybe you could explain that to me a little bit, because
Well, okay.
it seems such a natural thing. I'm a little surprised here.
All right, well, I think the first thing we need to look at is an exchange of value, okay? Another is, I know you're very responsible. You've been very responsible at paying your bills and things of that nature, but I need those plans fairly quickly.
Oh, I would do a good job for you. There's no
Okay.
doubt about that.
But what if you said, well, I'll do it next month. Next month comes, no plans.
Here the client suggested the bartering. Would that make any difference to anybody? How would that, how would you handle that?
I would have possibly said yes. We would have had to evaluate the cost of the service, kept the services professional, had a timeline and a contract. And then that way you'd have something viable to trade.
Any other? Yeah.
Well, I still think, though, you get into a real sticky situation, because what if you didn't like the plans, or you ended up building the thing and it didn't work out to your liking, and you've provided all this therapy, and there's still going to be that sense that you didn't like the service that was provided, and yet she got her therapy. So there still might be a problem. There still might be, a really strange situation.
I'd have to agree with Suzanne. I feel like when it comes to bartering, it's like there's so much in the therapy, especially what we've been discussing today, that's complicated in a sense as it is, and it's almost just like throwing something else on top of that. And plus, I do feel too that it's like, in the long run, what if you're not happy? What if they're not happy? That's gonna affect the therapeutic relationship. How are you gonna deal with that within the relationship?
Right, she might draw very fine plans, and I look at it and say, I'm really very disappointed. It's not what I had in mind. Good point.
But how ethical is it for you to abandon Janice? I mean, what if she couldn't end therapy at that time?
How much responsibility do we have? I mean, I think there's so many other options that could be explored. What about a referral? Is there any agencies within the community that might meet her needs a little bit better, rather than having to kind of put, I guess, myself out on a limb that way?
Do you see how important it is to have thought through that kind of ahead of time before we even see clients, and how important it is what we're doing here to explore those kind of issues, and then have somehow something thought through. How will I deal with this issue when it comes up? And even then you might have to struggle with it, but at least haven't given it some thought, and not be so totally surprised when it happens, and then maybe having a lot of regrets over the way you're handling it. Again, I think what we're picking up is a lot of you are in environments where that is not part, of the culture. And there's a lot of, hesitation about it. And yet there are cultures where that is absolutely practiced all the time. And I think we need to be clear, kind of how are we going to deal with this.